show on the road. Agenda item number 1, I'd like to call the Wednesday, June 9th, 2021 meeting of the Nevada Board of Wildlife Commissioners, Mule Deer Enhancement Program Management Area 10 Subcommittee to order at 6:04. I'd like to remind everybody that this is being recorded, and I'll ask Tom to take roll.
Yep. Thanks, Scott. It's good to see everybody. Just to kind of introduce myself, I'm Tom Donham. I'm the Eastern Region Game Division Supervisor. I'm not in the Witness Protection Program. I have a bright window behind me, so the silhouette's not on purpose. Anyway, what I'll do is I'll take roll here, and if you would, when I call your name, maybe just kind of give us a quick introduction and kind of who you're representing and maybe what your interest is in participating on the program. So we'll start with Bert Gurr.
Well, I don't have to tell you my name now since you already said it. So
That's
anyway, right. I guess I'm representing the advisory board in this meeting. My background goes way back to the 70s and 80s on this mule deer thing. And then back on the board again, terribly interested in Unit 10, especially all of Elko County, but 10 always intrigues me. I spent most of my formative years hunting in so that's why I wanted this committee.
All right, appreciate it, Bert. Dave Gowan.
Yeah, Dave Gowan, for the record, owner, operator of Canyons West Guide Service. I'm representing myself and maybe sportsman, I assume, and just have a general concern for the welfare of our mule deer in Elko County. I'd like to see them flourish and be the populations maintained and managed to the best that we can do. So that's why I'm here.
All right, thanks, Dave. Henry Kranka.
Henry Kranka, owner of Hidden Lake Outfitters. This is my 40th year on that. Third generation ranching in Ruby Valley, and president of the Nevada Outfitters and Guides Association.
Right. Go ahead, Henry.
I just gonna say I've seen it go from bad to worse and come back again, and this time doesn't seem to want to come back. So I think we need to get together and see what we can do.
All right, appreciate it, Henry. Josh Roderick, still not on. Matt Glenn, don't see Matt. Scott Roberts.
Present, Area 10 game biologist, been at it for the past 4 years. And prior to that, I'd been in 065 and Area 12, been in Elko since 2011, been with the department since off and on since 2004. So yeah, really excited. I think we have a really good team here with a lot of collective wisdom and a lot of experience in Area 10, and I'm excited to see where it goes.
Thank you, Scott. Sean Marshall. Oh, you're on mute there, Sean.
There we go. So thanks everyone, and Sean Marshall, and I guess I represent just the interested sportsmen of Eastern Nevada. I've got a really much of a science background or no science background, but I spent my younger years, or probably about the last 30 years, roaming the Rubies and the East Humboldts, but some of the more remote parts of Area 10, Southern Area 10, and eastern part of Area 10. So I have a kind of a vested long-term interest in the health and quality of the Area 10 mule deer herd.
Right on. And Walt Gardner. Nope.
Okay, I'm Walt Gardner. I live in Ruby Valley, Nevada. I've been here all of my life. I'm avid sportsman. I'm also a rancher. I don't know who I'm supposed to be representing, but I'm wholeheartedly in it to find out what is best for the mule deer in Area 10.
All right. Appreciate it. And Caleb, why don't you introduce yourself?
Good evening, everybody. Caleb McAdoo. I'm the Eastern Region Habitat Supervisor, former Area 10 game biologist prior to Scott. Happy to see all the faces that are on this call, and yeah, kind of similar to what Walt said, just looking forward to seeing what we can do for mule deer in Area 10 and the rest of Nevada through these teams.
All right. Well, that's it for roll call. So I'll turn it back to you, Scott.
So agenda item number 2, approval of the agenda. The subcommittee will review the agenda and may take action to approve the agenda. The chairman, in his discretion or upon request, may take items out of order, combine items for consideration by the subcommittee, and may remove items from the agenda at any time. Due to the approval of the agenda being an action item, we'll take public comment prior to taking action. Persons wishing to comment are invited to raise their virtual hands in the virtual meeting forum. Each person offering public comment during the period will be limited to not more than 3 minutes. The chair may allow persons representing groups to speak for 6 minutes, or people may provide written comment via email to ndowgame@ndow.org, ndowgame@ndow.org. We'll take public comment for 6:12 now until 6:16. Then we'll be back on.
While we're in recess, you hear me, Henry? I guess not.
All right, Scott, we didn't have any public comment via email and no virtual hands raised.
All right, we'll move on to agenda item number 3, report on mule deer enhancement program. Let's see. Okay. That showing up for everybody?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So I'm gonna briefly touch on history, surveys, population estimates, and harvest, and then I'll spend most of the time giving an overview of the recent and historical threats and recent work to address those threats. Area 10 has a long history of being thoroughly studied and has always had a spotlight on it. The best example of the early historical interest is the Ruby Butte study, which was a pretty groundbreaking effort that examined all life stages of deer in Area 10. The project laid the foundation for a lot of the eventual survey and management designs that the state has used for decades. It was
Hey,
initiated.
Scott?
Yeah.
I didn't mean to interrupt. We still need to approve that agenda.
Oh, okay.
Take a motion. Second.
I move to approve the agenda.
Do we have a second?
This is Dave Gowan. I move to second the approval of the agenda.
Okay. So Tom, we're taking a vote on that with the board?
yeah, we've got to take a vote as
Okay, so everybody who approves the agenda, can you signify by saying aye?
I,
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Okay, we will believe it was passed unanimously and we'll be moving on. So moving back to the Ruby Butte study. It was initiated in response to population declines witnessed in the early 60s. And in the 5 years that it was operated, it ended up trapping, marking, and doing follow-up work on over 2,500 individual deer. Moving on to, this is a pretty busy graph, but the brown line is going to be representing published population estimates. The purple line is representing spring survey samples, and the yellow lines are representing spring fawn ratios. And you can see just right off the bat, the last decade, there has been very few average or above average fawn ratios. And just a little bit with the population estimate portion of it, you can see the peak in 88, followed by decline, couple drought years, and it kind of plugs along. Then you hit 92, 93, you see a decline, builds up, another major winter in 96, 97. And then it just kind of muddles along, you know, that 20 to 25,000 deer mark for the better part of 2 decades. And then in recent years, we've seen, you know, a sizable decline in the estimate, and we've been hovering right around that 15,000 deer mark. And you see kind of the same movement in the spring deer sample, just to a lesser degree. You see, you know, averaging 7,000 to 9,000 deer for a long time. And then in recent years, just been a lower sample size. But of note, that 2017, there were some mechanical issues. 2018, that was a polygon survey. And so there was more deer observed than there was actually in the sample. And so that's artificially low. But these are 2 pretty standard surveys, and they're definitely low historically speaking. And then you have COVID there, that's 0. Moving on to harvest. As you can imagine, the harvest tracks the population estimates pretty well. And you have these lows following major winters. You have a major winter event, early 80s. You have 92, 93 here, 96, 97 here. And then you have the historically low harvests of the last 4 years. And as you can see, the doe harvest has tracked the buck harvest pretty well over the years, and it's been pretty minimal the last few years. And then just zooming in on the last decade or so, one note right off the bat, this 2011, this low, that year the commission cut tags across the state by 25 to 40%. And so it's kind of an artificial low, which makes this kind of an artificial high because it was a response to that cut. This would have been a much flatter, smoother line through here. And then you hit, like I said, the 3 lowest total buck harvests on record in the last 4 years. And doe harvest has been really pretty minimal. Moving on to some collaring work. There'd been limited collaring work done over the years, and it really ramped up in 2011. 2011 through 13, there was over 300 deer of all age and sex classes collared. Looking at migration corridors, seasonal range, seasonal and annual survival rates, and different migration strategies. And this is a map that was generated from that early collaring work. of note, you can see deer traveling 30+ miles south of Highway 50 down here. This is Black Rock Summit or Black Rock Canyon in the White Pine Range. And just something to remember when we're moving forward. You can see there's not much use past the point of the mountain here around Lee, and no use on this western bench, and limited use in the buttes here. Moving forward, as part of an expansion plan in 2016, an MOU was signed by the department, BLM, and Kinross to maintain 30 collars for at least 5 years, targeting those deer that are utilizing the mine site on their seasonal migrations. And as part of that, Kinross agreed to install 2 snowtail sites, one on the east side and one on the west side. And we have set snow triggers in there, and if a max snow depth limit is hit, they've agreed to work through a number of BMPs to either clear snow or limit clustering haul traffic, limiting non-essentials traffic, plowing roads, a number of things to just help deer move through the mine site. And so to maintain those 30 collars, usually we go into January or February of each year with 35 to 40 collars, knowing that there's going to be some level of attrition throughout the year. And to date, there's been over 130 individual deer collared through this process. And right now we have 30 to 35 collars that are still in operation. And this is the 5th year of that MOU. And Kinross is going through the planning process of a new expansion. And we haven't agreed on what future monitoring plans are going to look like as of yet. And this is collar data through 2019. You can see a much more complete depiction of the use up the west side of the Rubies. You have some use in the East Humboldts all the way over to the Wood Hills. You have a lot more extensive use south of Highway 50 in the White Pine Range here. And you have a lot more expansive use in the buttes. And this individual actually made its way all the way down to, all the way down to Lund. And one missing piece of the collaring puzzle to date has been the East Humboldts, and those deer that summer there and winter primarily on Spruce Mountain, but secondarily in the Wood Hills, Delcer Buttes, West Buttes, and sometimes even the north end of the Cherry Creeks. And so this year we were able to find funding and secure 30 collars on adult does, targeting at the time deer primarily on Spruce Mountain, but we did get a few deer in the West Buttes around Valley Mountain, a few in the Wood Hills, and there's been some pretty exciting movements. A few of the deer actually moved into Area 7. There's been some that have moved all the way across the East Humboldts into the north end of the Rubies. And moving forward and planning with our partners and land managing agencies, this is going to be a really important piece